My husband died years ago. Every month I sent his mom $200. But then, the envelope felt heavier than usual in my trembling hands. $200. The same amount I'd been sending every single month for the past 6 years. But this time, as I stood in the dim hallway outside apartment 712, my neighbor's words kept echoing in my mind like a warning bell I couldn't silence. Naomi, stop giving them that money. Just stop. Go downstairs to the security office and ask to see the footage from last Tuesday night. Please, just look at it. Mrs. Chun had grabbed my wrist yesterday morning as I was leaving for work, her wrinkled face twisted with something between pity and fear. She wouldn't say anything else. Just kept shaking her head and repeating, "Look at the footage. You need to see it with your own eyes." And I did. I went down to the security office this morning before coming up here. I told them I thought I saw someone suspicious on my floor. The guard, a kind man named Joseph, pulled up the recording from last Tuesday, around 2 in the morning. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. A man, walking up the stairs to the 7th floor, limping slightly, favoring his right leg the way someone does when they've broken it before, and it never quite healed right. He was wearing a black hoodie pulled low over his face, but when he reached the 7th floor, he stopped right in front of apartment 712. My dead husband's mother's apartment. He didn't knock. He pulled out a key. His own key. And he let himself in like he'd done it 1,000 times before. The way he moved. That slight dip of his left shoulder with each step. The way he paused before climbing the last 2 stairs, like he was catching his breath. I knew that walk. I'd watched that walk for 8 years of marriage. That was my husband. My husband who died 6 years ago in a construction accident in Texas. My husband whose body I never got to see because they said the fall was too terrible and it was better to remember him as he was. My husband whose ashes I kept in a beautiful urn on my dresser. Except those ashes couldn't be him. Because he was alive. Walking into his mother's apartment at 2 in the morning. And I'd been sending them $200 every single month for 6 years. Now I stood here, on this hot August evening, with the envelope in my hand and my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The number 712 stared back at me from the faded door. Behind it, I could hear the television playing. Some game show with loud music and people clapping. I raised my hand to knock, but it froze in the air. What was I doing? Should I knock? Should I confront them? Should I call the police? My mind raced back to how this all started 6 years ago, when everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the call. I remember because Tuesday was always my day to do laundry at the building's shared laundry room, and I was sorting whites from colors when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Naomi Fisher? A man's voice, official sounding. Yes, this is she. Ma'am, I'm calling from Redfield Construction in Houston, Texas. I'm very sorry to inform you that there's been an accident involving your husband, Ezra Fisher. The basket of laundry slipped from my hands. Clothes scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. What kind of accident? My voice didn't sound like my own. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. There was a fall from the 15th floor of a building site. Your husband didn't survive. We're making arrangements to. The rest of his words dissolved into white noise. I don't remember hanging up. I don't remember how I got to my apartment. I just remember sitting on the kitchen floor, staring at nothing until my 4-year-old son, Isaac, came and hugged me, asking why I was crying. How do you tell a 4-year-old that his daddy is never coming home? The funeral was 3 days later. Closed casket. They said it had to be. They said his body was too damaged, and it was better this way. Better to remember him whole and smiling. His mother, Deborah, cried so hard at the service, she had to be held up by 2 of her church friends. She kept wailing, "My son, my only son," over and over until I thought my heart would crack into pieces from the sound of it. After the funeral, after everyone left and the casseroles stopped coming and life was supposed to go back to normal, Deborah came to my apartment. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hands shook as she held a cup of tea I'd made her. "Naomi," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. I need to talk to you about something important. I sat across from her at my small kitchen table, Isaac playing with his toy cars in the living room, and I waited. Before Ezra went to Texas, he borrowed money from me, she said, not meeting my eyes. A lot of money. My stomach tightened. How much? $15,000. I felt like I'd been slapped. 15,000? Why? He said he needed it for the job in Texas. Said he had to pay for his own equipment, his own lodging, his own transportation. He promised he'd pay me back as soon as he got his first paycheck. Her voice broke. But now he's gone, and that was all my savings, Naomi. That was everything I had. I stared at her. $15,000. I didn't even know Ezra had borrowed that kind of money. I worked for 30 years as a nurse, Deborah continued, tears rolling down her cheeks. I saved every penny for my retirement. And I gave it all to my son because he said he needed it. He said it would change our lives. That he'd make so much money in Texas, we'd never have to worry again. Guilt crashed over me like a wave. This woman had given her only son everything she had, and he died before he could pay her back. I'm living on Social Security now, she whispered. $800 a month. My rent is $600. I can barely afford food, Naomi. I'm 64 years old, and I have nothing. I felt sick. Ezra had taken his mother's life savings, and now she was suffering because of it. I'm not asking you to pay it all back, Deborah said quickly, seeing the look on my face. I know you have Isaac to take care of. I know you're struggling too. But maybe if you could help me a little each month? Just until I get back on my feet. What could I say? This was my husband's mother. This was Isaac's grandmother. This was my responsibility now. How much do you need? I asked quietly. $200 a month would help so much, she said, fresh tears spilling. Just $200. I know it's a lot, but I'll do it, I said, even though I had no idea how I'd make it work. I was working as a receptionist at a dental office, making barely enough to cover our own rent and food. But what choice did I have? Deborah grabbed my hands across the table. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're a blessing, Naomi. I'll never forget this. And so it began. Every month, on the 5th day, I would withdraw $200 from my account and bring it to apartment 712. Sometimes I'd bring Isaac with me. Sometimes I'd come alone. Deborah would open the door just a crack, take the money, thank me briefly, and close the door again. She never invited me in. Not once in 6 years. At first, I thought it was grief. Maybe being around me and Isaac reminded her too much of Ezra. Maybe she needed space to heal. But as the years went on, it started to feel strange. I'd knock on her door and hear shuffling inside, like people moving around quickly. I'd hear whispers. Once, I thought I heard a man's voice, but when I asked Deborah about it, she said it was just the television. Isaac would ask, Mama, why doesn't Grandma Deborah ever want to see me? I didn't have an answer. I'd make excuses. She's not feeling well, honey. She's tired. She's getting old. But the truth was, I didn't understand it either. What grandmother doesn't want to see her only grandchild? $200 every month. For 6 years. That was $14,400. Almost the entire amount Ezra had supposedly borrowed. I'd sacrificed so much to make those payments. I wore the same 3 outfits to work, rotating them until they were threadbare. I bought generic everything at the grocery store. I couldn't afford to take Isaac to the movies or buy him new toys. When his shoes got too small, I'd stuff tissue in the toes of old ones to make them last another month. There were nights when I'd sit at my kitchen table, staring at my bank account balance, wondering how I'd make it to the next paycheck. There were times when I'd skip meals so Isaac could eat enough. But I kept paying, because it was the right thing to do. Because Deborah had lost her son and her savings. Because I owed it to Ezra's memory. Except now, standing here in this hallway, I realized it was all a lie. The man on the security footage was Ezra. I knew it in my bones. The way he moved, the way he climbed those stairs. Even with his face hidden, I knew. My husband wasn't dead. He'd been living with his mother this whole time. Living off my money. letting me struggle and scrape and sacrifice while he hid like a coward.
But why?
Why would he fake his own death? Why would he put me through this hell? Why would he abandon his son? I lower my hand from the door. I couldn't knock. Not yet. Not until I knew more. I needed proof. Real proof. Not just security footage of a man who walked like Ezra. I needed something undeniable. I turned and walked back down the hallway, my mind spinning with plans. I needed to catch him in the act. I needed to see his face. I needed to hear his voice. And then I would make him pay for every single lie. I took the stairs down instead of the elevator, my legs moving on autopilot. When I reached the ground floor, I nearly ran into Mrs. Chen, who was checking her mailbox. Naomi, she grabbed my arm. Did you look at the footage? I nodded, unable to speak. You saw him then, she said softly. I knew it was him. I've seen him 3 times now, always late at night. Always sneaking in like a thief. The first time, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But the second time, I got close enough to see his face when he looked back down the stairs. It was Ezra. I'd know him anywhere. Why didn't you tell me sooner? The words came out harsh, angry. Mrs. Chen's face crumpled. I didn't know how. How do you tell someone their dead husband is alive? I thought maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was seeing things. But then I saw him again last week, and I knew I had to say something. I took a shaky breath. I need to catch him. I need proof that it's really him. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'm going to find out why he did this. Why he left us. Why he's been hiding. Mrs. Chen squeezed my arm. Be careful, Naomi. If he's desperate enough to fake his death, he might be dangerous. I hadn't thought of that. What if Ezra wasn't the man I thought I knew? What if 6 years of hiding had changed him into someone I wouldn't recognize? But I couldn't back down now. I had to know the truth. I went home and tucked Isaac into bed, kissing his forehead as he drifted off to sleep. He looked so much like Ezra it hurt. The same dark curly hair. The same deep brown eyes. The same dimple in his left cheek when he smiled. How could Ezra abandon this beautiful boy? How could he let his son grow up thinking his father was dead? After Isaac was asleep, I sat in my dark living room, staring at the urn on my dresser. The urn that supposedly held Ezra's ashes. I never opened it, never looked inside. They'd told me it was sealed, that it shouldn't be disturbed. But now I wondered, what was really in there? I stood up and walked to the dresser, my hands trembling as I picked up the urn. It was heavier than I expected. Cold metal under my fingers. I tried to twist the lid, but it wouldn't budge. It was sealed tight, just like they'd said. I needed tools. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a butter knife, wedging it under the lid's edge. I worked it around slowly, carefully, until I heard a soft crack. The seal broke. I held my breath and lifted the lid. Inside was ash. Gray, powdery ash. But something about it looked wrong. Too uniform. Too perfect. I reached in with my finger and touched it. It felt gritty, like sand. I pulled my hand back and stared at the gray dust on my fingertip. This wasn't human ash. I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't the cremated remains of my husband. They'd given me an urn full of fake ashes. Everything was a lie. The room started spinning. I set the urn down before I dropped it, my legs giving out as I sank to the floor. Ezra was alive. The funeral was fake. The death certificate was fake. The ashes were fake.
But why?
What had happened in Texas? What had Ezra gotten himself into that made him desperate enough to disappear, to let everyone think he was dead? And why was he hiding in his mother's apartment instead of running far away? I needed answers. And I was going to get them. Tomorrow was Thursday. Tomorrow I would call in sick to work. Tomorrow I would stake out apartment 712 and wait for Ezra to show himself. Tomorrow I would confront the ghost of my husband. But as I sat there on my living room floor, surrounded by lies and fake ashes, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I discovered would be worse than anything I could imagine. The man on that security footage, the man hiding in the shadows, wasn't the Ezra I'd married. That Ezra was kind and honest and loved his family. This Ezra was someone else entirely. Someone who could lie and steal and abandon his own child. And I was about to come face to face with him. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop looking.
Forget what you saw.
It's better this way. My heart stopped. Someone knew.
Someone was watching me.
I looked at my front door, suddenly terrified. Was someone out there right now? Was Ezra watching me somehow? Another text came through. I'm warning you, Naomi. Let the dead stay dead. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. The text messages glowed on the screen like warnings from a ghost, and I couldn't stop staring at them. Stop looking.
Forget what you saw.
It's better this way. I'm warning you, Naomi. Let the dead stay dead.
Someone was watching me. Right now.
They knew I'd seen the security footage. They knew I was asking questions. I jumped up from the floor and ran to my window, pulling back the curtain just enough to peek outside. The parking lot below was dark except for a few streetlights casting long shadows. I scanned every car, every corner, looking for movement, for anything out of place. Nothing. Just the usual quiet night in our apartment complex.
But someone had sent those texts.
Someone knew. Was it Ezra? Was he warning me to stay away? Or was it Deborah, trying to protect her son? My phone buzzed again, and I nearly screamed. But this time it was just my best friend, Ruth, sending me a funny video she'd found online. Normal. Simple. The kind of thing that used to make me smile before my whole world turned into a nightmare. I couldn't tell Ruth. Not yet. She'd think I was losing my mind. Your dead husband is alive and texting you threats. She'd probably want to call a doctor, get me some medication for grief-induced hallucinations. But this was real. The security footage was real. The texts were real. The fake ashes in my living room were devastatingly, horribly real. I looked in on Isaac one more time. He was sleeping peacefully, his little chest rising and falling with each breath, his favorite stuffed elephant tucked under his arm. He looked so innocent, so safe in a small world where the worst thing that could happen was running out of his favorite cereal. How was I supposed to protect him from this? How was I supposed to tell him that his father, the father he'd mourned for 6 years, the father whose picture he kissed goodnight every evening, was actually alive and hiding like a criminal? I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound made me jump. Every car door slamming outside, every footstep in the hallway above me, every creak of the building settling. I kept checking my phone for more messages, but nothing came. At 3 in the morning, I made a decision. I couldn't wait until tomorrow. I needed to do something now. I grabbed my laptop and started searching. If Ezra had faked his death, there had to be records. Death certificates, accident reports, something from that construction company in Texas. I typed Redfield Construction, Houston, Texas, into the search bar. Nothing came up. No website, no business listing, no reviews. It was like the company didn't exist. My stomach dropped. I tried different variations. Redfield Construction, Texas. Redfield Building Company, Houston. Redfield Contractors. Nothing. 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 The company that had supposedly employed my husband, the company that had called to tell me he was dead, didn't exist. I sat back in my chair, my mind reeling. If the company was fake, then the whole story was fake. The job in Texas, the accident, all of it.
But someone had called me.
I remembered that voice, that official-sounding man who told me Ezra had fallen from the 15th floor. I remembered every word of that horrible conversation.
Who was that man?
Was it someone Ezra knew? Someone he'd paid to make the call? I pulled out the folder I kept in my desk drawer, the one with all the paperwork from Ezra's death. I'd only looked at it once, right after the funeral, and then I'd shoved it away because it hurt too much. Now I spread everything out on my kitchen table under the dim light. Death certificate. Funeral home invoice. Cremation paperwork. A letter from Redfield Construction, on official-looking letterhead, expressing their condolences and explaining that they'd already sent Ezra's final paycheck to his bank account. I examined the death certificate closely. It looked real. Official state seal, signatures, everything.
But was it?
How would I even know if it was forged? The funeral home was local, a place called Peaceful Rest Memorial Services. I'd met with them once, just briefly, to arrange for the cremation. They'd been kind but efficient, and I'd been too destroyed by grief to ask many questions. I looked at the invoice. $6,000 for cremation services, a basic urn, and a memorial service. I'd paid it with money from Ezra's life insurance policy, a small policy worth $10,000 that his job at the warehouse had provided.
Wait.
His job at the warehouse. Ezra had worked at a warehouse for 5 years before he went to Texas. He'd been a forklift operator, steady work, decent pay. Why would he leave that job for construction work in Texas? I'd asked him that before he left. We'd been sitting on this same couch, and I'd been 7 months pregnant with Isaac. Ezra, I don't understand. I'd said, my hand on my swollen belly. You have a good job here. Why do you need to go to Texas? He'd taken my hands in his brown eyes so sincere, so loving. Baby, this is our chance. This construction job pays 3 times what I make at the warehouse. 3 times, Naomi. I'll be gone for 6 months, maybe 8, and then I'll come home with enough money to put a down payment on a real house. No more apartment living. No more struggling to pay bills. I can give you and our baby the life you deserve. I'd wanted to argue, wanted to beg him to stay. But how could I? He was doing this for us. For our family. I'll miss you so much, I'd whispered. I'll miss you too. But I'll call every single day. And I'll be back before you know it. I promise. He'd left 2 weeks later. Isaac was born a month after that, and Ezra had cried on the phone when I sent him the first picture of our son. He's perfect, Ezra had said, his voice thick with emotion. You're amazing, Naomi. I can't wait to hold him. He'd called every day, just like he promised. Sometimes twice a day. He'd tell me about the job, about the heat in Texas, about how hard the work was, but how it would all be worth it. He'd ask about Isaac, about every little detail. Did he sleep through the night? Was he eating well? Did he smile yet? Those phone calls had been my lifeline during those exhausting first months of motherhood. Knowing Ezra was out there, working hard for us, counting down the days until he could come home. And then, for months after Isaac was born, the calls stopped. For 2 days, nothing. I'd been frantic with worry, calling his number over and over, leaving voicemails that went unanswered. And then that awful phone call came. The one that shattered my world.
But it had all been a lie.
Every word, every promise, every I love you he'd said on those calls. The man I'd loved, the man I'd trusted with my whole heart, had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. Tears blurred my vision as I stared at the papers spread across my table. I'd been so blind. So stupid. I'd believed everything without questioning.
But why?
Why would Ezra do this? What was he running from? What had he done that made him desperate enough to fake his own death and abandon his newborn son? I needed to talk to someone who might know. Someone from his old life. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Marcus. Ezra's best friend from childhood. They'd grown up together, gone to school together, got in trouble together. Marcus had come to the funeral. He'd hugged me and cried and told me if I ever needed anything at all, I should call him. I'd never called. We'd exchanged a few text messages over the years, just checking in, but we hadn't really talked since the funeral. It was almost 4 a.m, but I didn't care. I hit the call button. It rang 6 times before a groggy voice answered. Hello?
Naomi?
What's wrong? Is Isaac okay? Marcus, I need to talk to you. It's about Ezra. There was a long pause. Naomi, it's 4 a.m. Can this wait until? Ezra's alive. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Marcus? Did you hear me? Ezra's alive. He's been hiding this whole time. That's not possible, Marcus said, but his voice sounded strange.
Off.
Like he was trying too hard to sound shocked. You knew. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Oh my God, you knew. You've known this whole time. Naomi, I don't know what you're talking about. Ezra's dead. We buried him. We We didn't bury him. I was almost shouting now, but I didn't care if I woke Isaac, didn't care if I woke the whole building. There was no body, Marcus. Just an urn full of fake ashes. And I have security footage of someone who looks exactly like Ezra going into his mother's apartment. So you can stop lying to me and tell me the truth. Where is he? Why did he do this? Another long silence. Then Marcus sighed. A deep, exhausted sound. Naomi, I can't talk about this on the phone. Meet me tomorrow. There's a coffee shop on 5th Street, next to the library. Angelo's. Meet me there at 10 in the morning. Tell me now. I can't. Not like this. Tomorrow. 10 o'clock. I'll explain everything. He hung up before I could argue. I sat there holding my phone, my heart pounding. Marcus knew. He'd known all along. How many other people were in on this? How many people had looked me in the eye at that funeral and lied to my face? The rest of the night passed in a blur. I must have dozed off at some point because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through my window, and Isaac was tugging on my arm. Mama, you slept on the couch. Are you sick? I sat up, my neck stiff from the awkward angle.
No, baby.
Mama just fell asleep watching TV. Are you hungry? Let's make breakfast. I went through the motions like a robot. Cereal for Isaac.
Coffee for me. Cartoons on the TV.
Getting him dressed for school. Packing his lunch. Walking him to the bus stop. Mrs. Patterson from down the hall was there with her daughter. Morning, Naomi. How are you doing? Fine. I lied, forcing a smile. Just tired. You work too hard, she said sympathetically. You should take a day off sometime. Rest. If only she knew that I'd just discovered my dead husband was alive and my whole life was built on lies. Yeah, I could probably use a day off. After Isaac's bus pulled away, I went back to my apartment and got ready to meet Marcus. I chose my clothes carefully. Jeans and a simple blue sweater. Nothing too fancy, nothing too casual. I wanted to look strong, in control, not like the broken mess I felt inside. At 9:45, I left my apartment and drove to 5th Street. Angelo's was a small Italian coffee shop with red checkered curtains and the smell of fresh bread wafting out the door. Marcus was already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept either. When he saw me, he stood up, but I brushed past him and slid into the booth without a word. Naomi, Don't. I cut him off. Don't apologize. Don't make excuses. Just tell me the truth. Where is Ezra and why did he fake his death? Marcus ran his hand over his face. A waitress came by and he ordered 2 coffees without asking what I wanted. We waited in tense silence until she brought them and left. He made me promise not to tell you, Marcus finally said. He made me swear on my life. Well, he's not here, is he? So tell me. Marcus took a sip of his coffee, his hands shaking slightly. Ezra got into trouble. Bad trouble. About 7 years ago, before he left for Texas. What kind of trouble? Gambling. He started going to this underground poker game with some guys from work. At first it was just for fun, just small bets. But then he started winning.
Big.
He won $15,000 in one night. My blood ran cold. $15,000. The same amount Deborah said he'd borrowed from her. He didn't borrow money from his mother, I said slowly. He won at gambling. Marcus nodded miserably. He was so excited. He said it was a sign that he was meant to win big, that he could make more. So he kept playing. And he kept winning at first. He won another $10,000 the next month. But then his luck changed. How much did he lose? $60,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. 60,000? How is that even possible? These weren't normal games, Naomi. These were serious players. Dangerous people. Ezra kept thinking he could win it back, so he borrowed money from loan sharks to keep playing. And he lost it all. Every penny. So he ran away to Texas?
No.
Texas was a lie. He never went to Texas. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. The people he owed money to, they came to collect. They found him at the warehouse one night after a shift. They beat him up pretty bad, broke 3 of his ribs and his ankle. Told him he had 2 weeks to come up with the money, or they'd kill him. And they meant it, Naomi. These aren't people who make empty threats. I thought of the limp. The way the man on the security footage had favored his right leg. Ezra had broken his right ankle, not his left like I'd remembered. The stress of the last few days had confused my memory. So, he faked his death, I said. It was the only way out. If those men thought he was dead, they'd stop looking for him. He couldn't just run away, because they'd find him eventually. They have connections everywhere. But if he was dead... Marcus shrugged helplessly. Dead men don't owe debts. Who helped him? How did he pull it off? He had a friend who worked at the funeral home. Guy named Steven. Steven owed Ezra a favor from way back, something about Ezra helping him out of legal trouble. Steven arranged everything. The fake death certificate, the fake cremation papers, even that phone call you got. That was Steven's brother pretending to be from a construction company. I felt sick. It had all been so carefully planned. So many people involved. So many lies. And what about me? My voice cracked. What about your son? Did he even think about us when he decided to disappear? Marcus looked away. He said it was to protect you. If those men came looking and found out he had a family, they might use you to get to him. By making everyone think he was dead, he kept you safe. Safe. I laughed bitterly. I've been paying his mother $200 a month for 6 years. Money we desperately needed. Money that should have gone to feeding and clothing his son. You call that safe? You call that protection? I didn't know about the money, Marcus said quickly. I swear, Naomi.
I didn't know about that part.
Where has he been living? What's he been doing? With his mother, mostly. He couldn't get a regular job because he needed to stay off the grid, no paperwork trail. So he's been doing odd jobs, under-the-table stuff. Construction work, moving furniture, whatever pays cash. His mother's been helping him, obviously. Obviously. The word tasted like poison. And you? What have you been doing besides lying to my face for 6 years? I helped him a few times, Marcus admitted. Found him some work. Gave him money when he needed it. But mostly I stayed away. He didn't want too much contact with anyone from his old life. How considerate of him. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. You know what the worst part is? Not that he faked his death. Not even that he abandoned us. The worst part is that he let me mourn him. He let me cry myself to sleep every night for months. He let his son grow up without a father. He let us struggle and suffer while he was hiding just a few floors above us this whole time. Naomi, please sit down. There's more you need to know. More? I wanted to scream. What more could there possibly be? The men he owed money to, they're not done looking for him. I sat back down slowly, dread creeping up my spine. What do you mean? About 6 months ago, they figured out he was alive. Someone saw him, recognized him. They've been looking for him ever since. That's why he's been staying inside his mother's apartment, barely going out. And that's why. Marcus hesitated. That's why he's been taking money from you. He needs it to pay them off little by little so they don't kill him. The room spun. My money. The money I've been killing myself to pay every month. He's been using it to pay off his gambling debts. Marcus nodded. So, Deborah didn't need it for living expenses. She didn't lose her retirement savings. That was all a lie too. I don't know about that part. I think his mother really did give him money at some point. But yeah, the $200 a month, that's been going to the loan sharks. I couldn't breathe. The betrayal was so deep, so complete. I felt like I was drowning. He's planning to run, Marcus continued. Once he pays off enough of the debt, he's going to disappear for real this time. Leave the state, maybe leave the country. Start over somewhere fresh. Without us. He thinks it's better this way. Safer for you and Isaac. Don't you dare, I said through gritted teeth. Don't you dare try to make this sound noble. He's a coward. He got himself into this mess, and instead of facing it like a man, he faked his death and let his family pay the price. Marcus didn't argue. He just sat there looking guilty and miserable. I want to see him, I said. I want to talk to him face to face. That's not a good idea. I don't care if it's a good idea. You owe me this, Marcus. After 6 years of lying to me, you owe me the truth. Set up a meeting. I don't care where or when, but make it happen. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then finally nodded. Okay, I'll talk to him. But Naomi, you have to understand, this is dangerous. If the wrong people find out he's alive, if they find out where he is,
Let me worry about that.
just set up the meeting. I left the coffee shop without drinking my coffee, without saying goodbye, without looking back. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get my keys in the car ignition. Ezra was alive. He'd been alive this whole time. And he'd been using me, using his own family, to save himself. I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying every conversation, every memory, seeing all the lies I'd missed. How had I been so blind? When I got back to my apartment, there was an envelope taped to my door. No name, no address, just a plain white envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with a typed message. You should have listened. Some secrets are better left buried. This is your last warning. Stop digging or you'll regret it. We're watching your son. The paper slipped from my fingers and floated to the ground. They were threatening Isaac. They were threatening my baby. And suddenly, nothing else mattered. Not the money, not the lies, not even confronting Ezra. The only thing that mattered was keeping my son safe. I ran inside and locked every lock on my door. I checked every window, closed every curtain. I called Isaac's school and told them under no circumstances was anyone except me allowed to pick him up. I gave them a password only Isaac and I knew. Then I sat on my couch and tried not to fall apart. Someone was watching us. Someone knew I was asking questions. And they were willing to threaten a 10-year-old child to make me stop. Who were these people? The loan sharks Marcus mentioned? Or was it Ezra himself, trying to scare me into silence? My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. The old Jefferson Park playground.
Come alone.
Don't tell anyone. I stared at the message. Tomorrow, I would finally face my husband. The man I'd loved. The man I'd mourned. The man who destroyed our lives. But as I sat there in my locked apartment, waiting for Isaac's bus to bring him home, all I could think about was that last warning. We're watching your son. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message. We're watching your son. For words that turned my entire world into a prison of fear. Isaac came home from school like always, chattering about his day, about how he got an A on his spelling test, about how his friend Daniel brought cool trading cards to lunch. He was so innocent, so completely unaware that someone out there was watching him, threatening him. I held him tighter than usual when he hugged me. Mama, you're squishing me, he laughed, but I couldn't let go. This was my baby, my whole world, and someone had dared to threaten him. I love you so much, I whispered into his curly hair. You know that, right? More than anything in this whole world. I love you too, Mama. He pulled back and looked at me with those big brown eyes, Ezra's eyes. Are you sad about something? How do you lie to a child who sees right through you? Just a long day, sweetheart. How about we make your favorite dinner? Spaghetti and meatballs? His face lit up, and for a moment, everything felt normal. We cooked together, he told me more stories from school, we ate dinner while watching his favorite cartoon. Bath time, story time, prayers, and then I tucked him into bed. Mama, can I ask you something? Isaac said as I was about to turn off his light. Anything, baby. Do you think Daddy can see us? From heaven. My heart cracked right down the middle. Here was my son, asking about his father who wasn't dead, who wasn't in heaven, who was hiding like a coward just a few floors above us. Why are you asking that? Because sometimes I talk to him. I tell him about school, and my friends and stuff. And I just wondered if he can really hear me, or if I'm just talking to nobody. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I forced them back. I think the people we love never really leave us. They live in our hearts and our memories. And when we talk to them, in a way, They hear us. That's what I thought too. Isaac smiled sleepily. Good night, Mama. Good night, my sweet boy. I closed his door and walked to the bathroom, where I finally let myself cry. Silent tears that I muffled with a towel pressed against my mouth. How was I supposed to tell Isaac the truth? How could I explain that his father was alive but had chosen to stay away? That he'd abandoned us, betrayed us, used us? Would Isaac hate me for keeping the truth from him? Would he hate Ezra? Or worse, would he somehow think it was his fault, that he wasn't good enough for his father to stay? I couldn't let that happen. Whatever else Ezra had done, whatever lies he'd told, Isaac was innocent in all of this. And I would protect him with everything I had. The next day dragged by like torture. I went to work at the dental office, answered phones, scheduled appointments, smiled at patients, all while my mind screamed with anxiety. Tonight I would see Ezra. Tonight I would get answers. But that threat kept echoing in my head. We're watching your son. At lunch, I called Ruth. My best friend since high school, the one person I could trust with anything. Hey girl, what's up? Her cheerful voice almost made me cry again. Ruth, I need a huge favor. Can you pick up Isaac from school today and keep him at your place tonight? I have to. I have to take care of something important. Of course. The boys will be thrilled to have a sleepover. Is everything okay? Yeah, there's something I need to do, and I'd feel better knowing Isaac is with you. Say no more. We'll have pizza and play video games. He can stay as long as you need. Thank you. And Ruth, don't let him out of your sight. Not for a second. There was a pause. Naomi, you're scaring me. What's going on? I can't explain right now. Just please, promise me you'll watch him carefully. Don't open the door for anyone you don't know. Keep the doors locked. Okay, now you're really freaking me out. Should I call the police?
No.
No police. Just keep Isaac safe. I'll explain everything later, I promise. After we hung up, I felt slightly better knowing Isaac would be with Ruth. Her husband, David, was a big guy who worked in security. If anyone tried anything, David would handle it. The afternoon crawled by. 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Finally, my shift ended and I drove home, my stomach in knots. I had 3 hours until I had to meet Ezra. 3 hours to prepare myself for seeing the man who'd been dead for 6 years, but was somehow alive. The man I'd loved with all my heart, but who'd ripped that heart to shreds. What would I even say to him? What do you say to a ghost who ruined your life? I changed clothes 5 times, which was stupid because what did it matter what I wore? But somehow it felt important. I needed to look strong, in control. Not like the broken, struggling woman I'd been for the past 6 years. I finally settled on dark jeans, boots, and a black jacket. My hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail. No makeup except a little lip gloss. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. When had I gotten so thin? When had those lines appeared around my eyes? 6 years of struggling, of sacrificing, of carrying the weight of the world alone. That's when. At 8:30, I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. But then I stopped. What if this was a trap? What if those men, the loan sharks Marcus mentioned, were planning to grab me to get to Ezra? I went back to my bedroom and wrote a letter. Just in case. To whoever finds this, my name is Naomi Fisher. My husband, Ezra Fisher, faked his death 6 years ago. He's been hiding in his mother's apartment, Deborah Fisher, apartment 712, this whole time. He owes money to dangerous people. If something happens to me, please make sure my son, Isaac, is taken care of. He's with Ruth and David Morrison. They'll be good parents to him. Tell Isaac I love him more than life itself. Tell him none of this was his fault. Tell him his mama fought for him until the very end. I sealed the letter in an envelope and left it on my kitchen table where it would be easily found. Then I walked out the door. Jefferson Park was on the east side of the city, about a 20-minute drive. It used to be a nice park when I was a kid, with clean playgrounds and families having picnics. But over the years it had gotten run down. Now it was mostly empty, especially at night. As I drove, I kept checking my rearview mirror, looking for cars that might be following me. I didn't see anything suspicious, but that didn't mean I wasn't being watched. I pulled into the park's empty parking lot at 8:55. My headlights swept across the old playground, the rusty swings swaying slightly in the breeze, the slide covered in graffiti. Beyond the playground was a small cluster of trees, dark shadows in the dim light from the distant street lamps. I turned off my engine and sat there, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, I would see Ezra. Part of me wanted to start the car and drive away. Go back to my safe apartment, pick up Isaac, and pretend I'd never seen that security footage. Pretend my husband was still dead and buried. But I couldn't. I'd come too far. Sacrificed too much. I deserved answers. At exactly 9 o'clock, a figure emerged from the trees. He was wearing dark clothes and a baseball cap, pulled low, but I recognized his walk. That slight limp on the right side. The way his left shoulder dipped. Ezra. He walked slowly toward my car, looking around nervously like he expected someone to jump out from the shadows. When he got within 10 feet, he stopped and gestured for me to get out. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely open the door. I stepped out into the cool night air, and suddenly we were facing each other. 10 feet apart. A distance that felt like miles. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We just stared at each other like strangers trying to recognize someone we used to know. He looked different. Older. Thinner. His hair was longer and shot through with gray that hadn't been there before. His face was gaunt, with deep lines around his eyes and mouth. He had a scraggly beard that made him look homeless. But his eyes, those brown eyes that used to look at me with so much love, they were the same. "Naomi," he said finally, and hearing his voice after 6 years of silence hit me like a physical blow. It was deeper than I remembered, rougher, but it was definitely him. "You're alive." My voice came out as barely a whisper. "You're actually alive." "I can explain." "Explain?" The word exploded out of me. "You can explain how you faked your own death? How you abandoned your newborn son? How you let us mourn you for 6 years while you hid like a coward?" I had no choice. He took a step forward, and I automatically stepped back. "Naomi, please, you have to understand. Those men would have killed me. They would have killed you and Isaac too, just to send a message. I did this to protect you." "Protect me?" I laughed, but it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. "You call stealing from us protection? That money you've been taking every month, that was supposed to be for your mother. For medicine and food and rent. But it's been going to pay off your gambling debts, hasn't it?" He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "I'm sorry about that. I really am. But I needed." "You needed?" My voice rose. "What about what we needed? What about Isaac needing his father? What about me needing my husband when I was struggling to pay rent and put food on the table? What about all those nights I cried myself to sleep because I missed you so much I couldn't breathe? I thought about you every day," he said quietly. "Both of you. It killed me to stay away. But not enough to come back. Not enough to tell me the truth. Not enough to be a man and face what you'd done." He finally looked at me then, and I saw tears in his eyes. "You're right. You're absolutely right. I was a coward. I am a coward. But Naomi, I was so scared. When those men broke my ribs and my ankle, when they told me they'd hurt you and the baby if I didn't pay, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. So you ran." "Yes, I ran. And once I started running, I couldn't stop. The lie got bigger and bigger until there was no way out. How could I come back? How could I tell you I'd been alive this whole time? You could have tried." I was shouting now, 6 years of pain and anger pouring out. "You could have called me, written me a letter, given me some sign that you were okay. Instead, you let me believe you were dead. You let your son grow up without a father. Do you know what that did to us? Do you have any idea?" "I know, and I'm sorry. God, Naomi, I'm so sorry." His voice broke. "I hate myself for what I've done. Every single day, I hate myself." "Good," I said coldly. "You should." We stood there in the darkness, Two people who used to be everything to each other, now strangers separated by an ocean of lies and hurt. How is he? Ezra asked softly. How's Isaac? Don't. I held up my hand. Don't you dare ask about him now. You gave up the right to know anything about your son when you abandoned him. He's my son too.
No.
A father is someone who's there. Someone who shows up. Someone who sacrifices for their child. You're not a father. You're just a man who helped create him. That hit him hard. I could see it in his face. But I didn't care. He deserved every painful word. What happens now? He asked. Are you going to turn me in? I'd thought about this. All day, I'd thought about calling the police, about exposing everything. He deserved to face consequences for what he'd done. But then I thought about Isaac. If Ezra went to prison, eventually Isaac would find out. He'd learn that his father was not only alive but a criminal, a liar, a man who abandoned his family. Could I do that to my son? Could I take away even the good memories he had of his father? I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to see you rot in prison for what you've done. But the other part... I took a shaky breath. The other part wants to protect Isaac from the truth. He's happy believing his father loved him, that you died trying to provide for us. How can I take that away from him? Thank you, Ezra said, relief flooding his face. Don't thank me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Isaac. Everything I've ever done has been for Isaac. I know. You're an amazing mother. You always were. His words made me want to scream. Stop. Just stop. You don't get to compliment me. You don't get to act like you know anything about our life. You're right. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. Tears were running down my face now. Your apologies mean nothing. They don't give me back the 6 years I lost. They don't give Isaac back his childhood with a father. What do you want from me, Naomi? Tell me what I can do to make this right. There is no making this right, I shouted. Don't you understand that? Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are too deep. We stood there as my words echoed across the empty playground. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car drove past on the street, its headlights briefly illuminating us before disappearing. I'm leaving, Ezra said finally. In 2 weeks. I've almost paid off enough of the debt. Marcus is helping me get new identification papers. I'm going to disappear, start over somewhere far away.
Good. Go.
We don't need you. But I need to know that you and Isaac will be okay. I stared at him in disbelief. Now you care? After 6 years. Now you suddenly care if we're okay? I've always cared. I couldn't save it. I turned back toward my car. I'm done. Don't contact me again. Don't send Marcus with messages. Just disappear like you planned and stay gone. Naomi, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. The money. I'll pay you back. Every cent. Once I'm settled somewhere, once I'm making money again, I'll send it to you. I promise. I looked back at him over my shoulder. Your promises don't mean anything anymore, Ezra. They never will again. I got in my car and started the engine. Through the windshield, I watched him standing there alone in the darkness, looking lost and broken. And for just a moment, just a single heartbreaking moment, I remembered the man I'd fallen in love with. The man who used to make me laugh, who'd hold me when I cried, who'd promised to love me forever. That man was dead. He'd died 6 years ago, even if his body was still walking around. I drove away without looking back. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. I drove for 20 minutes before I had to pull over because I couldn't see through my tears. I ended up in a grocery store parking lot, empty except for a few cars scattered near the entrance. I gripped the steering wheel and let myself break down completely. 6 years. 6 years of believing he was gone. 6 years of carrying the weight of our family alone. 6 years of telling Isaac bedtime stories about his brave daddy who went to heaven.
And it had all been a lie.
The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was seeing him standing there, alive and breathing, and realizing I felt nothing but anger. No joy that he was alive. No relief. Just pure, burning rage, and a grief so deep it felt like drowning. Because the man I loved really was dead. That Ezra, the one who'd kissed me goodbye with tears in his eyes, who'd promised to come home to us, who'd talked about building a life together, he was gone. The man in that park was a stranger wearing my husband's face.
My phone rang.
Ruth. I wiped my eyes and tried to steady my voice. Hey. Naomi? Girl, where are you? You sound terrible. I'm okay. Just finished what I needed to do. How's Isaac? He's great. He and the boys are in a heated Mario Kart tournament. David's making popcorn. You sure you're okay? You want to talk about it? Not yet. But soon, I promise. Can he stay there tonight? I need to sort some things out. Of course. Take all the time you need. He's safe here. Safe. That word meant everything right now. After I hung up, I just sat there in the dark car, watching people go in and out of the grocery store. Normal people doing normal things. Buying milk and bread and whatever else normal families needed. They had no idea their whole world could collapse in a single moment. My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. You met with him. That was stupid. You're making things complicated. My heart stopped. They'd been watching. They'd seen me and Ezra together. Another text came through. But maybe you can be useful. We know you've been paying the mother. That means you have access. We want you to deliver a message to Ezra. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking.
Who were these people?
The loan sharks Marcus mentioned? A third text. Tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Bring Ezra. If he runs, if you warn him, if you call the police, we'll visit your son at school. We know which classroom. We know his teacher's name is Mrs. Patterson. We know his best friend is Daniel Rodriguez. Don't test us. They knew everything. They'd been watching Isaac. Following him. Learning his routine. I wanted to throw up. Instead, I called Marcus. Naomi? Did you meet him? How did it? They know. I cut him off. The loan sharks, or whoever these people are, they know. They saw us meeting. They want me to bring Ezra to them tomorrow night. Marcus cursed. This is bad. This is really bad. They must have been watching his mother's place and followed you. They're threatening Isaac. They know his school, his classroom, everything. Marcus, I don't know what to do. Okay, let me think. I could hear him pacing. Does Ezra know? I don't know. I haven't talked to him since I left the park. You need to warn him. He needs to run tonight. Get as far away as possible. And what about me? What about Isaac? If Ezra runs, they'll come after us. I'll figure something out. I'll get you protection. Maybe we can.
No.
A strange calm settled over me. No, I have a better idea. Naomi, whatever you're thinking, they want to use me to get to Ezra.
Fine.
Let them. But we're going to turn this around. We're going to trap them instead. That's crazy. These aren't people you play games with. I'm not playing. My voice was hard, cold. They threaten my son, Marcus. My baby. I'm done being scared. I'm done being a victim. It's time to end this. I hung up and sat there, thinking, planning. For 6 years, I'd been reacting to other people's choices. Ezra's choice to gamble. His choice to fake his death. His mother's choice to help him lie. Everyone making decisions that affected my life, while I just accepted it. Not anymore. I drove to the police station. Not to report everything, not yet. But I needed insurance. I needed a backup plan. Inside, I asked to speak to a detective. They put me in a small room that smelled like old coffee and told me someone would be with me shortly. 10 minutes later, a woman in her 40s walked in. She had kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. I'm Detective Sarah Okonkwo. How can I help you? I need to report threats against my son. But I also need to tell you something complicated, and I need you to hear me out before you react. She sat down, pulling out a notepad. Go ahead. I took a deep breath and told her everything. About Ezra's gambling debts. About him faking his death. About the money I'd been paying. About the security footage. About the threats. Detective Okonkwo's expression went from curious to shocked to angry and back to professional. Mrs. Fisher, this is serious. We need to bring your husband in immediately for questioning. And we need to put protection on you and your son.
No, not yet.
If you arrest him now, these people will disappear. You'll never find them. But I have a plan to bring them out. Absolutely not. You're not bait. That's not how we do things. Detective, please. I leaned forward. These men threaten my son. They've been terrorizing me for days. If Ezra runs, they'll just come after me harder. The only way to end this is to catch them. And how exactly do you plan to do that? I explained my idea. It was risky, dangerous, probably stupid, but it was the only way to protect Isaac and finally be free of this nightmare. Detective Okonkwo listened, her face growing more concerned with each word. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This could go very wrong. Or it could work. If something happens to you, then Isaac goes to my friend Ruth. I already have it in writing. But nothing's going to happen because you and your team are going to be there, hidden, ready to step in. She studied me carefully. You've changed your mind about protecting your husband. He stopped being my husband 6 years ago. Now he's just a criminal who needs to face consequences. And I'm a mother who'll do whatever it takes to keep her son safe. Detective Okonkwo finally nodded. All right, we'll do it your way. But you follow our instructions exactly. No improvising. No heroics. Agreed. We spent the next hour going over details, timing, positions. By the time I left the police station, it was past midnight. I was exhausted, running on nothing but adrenaline and rage. I drove to Ruth's house and parked outside, just watching the dark windows. Isaac was in there, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger circling our lives. I'd promised to protect him, and tomorrow night, I'd keep that promise. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Then I called Deborah. She answered on the third ring. Hello. Her voice was cautious. It's Naomi. I need to talk to Ezra.
Today.
It's urgent. There was a long pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop lying. I was done with the games. I know he's there. I've seen him. We met last night. Now put him on the phone, or I'm coming up there. More silence, then muffled voices. Finally, Ezra's voice came through. Naomi, they contacted me. The people you owe money to. They want me to bring you to them tonight. Same place as yesterday, 9 o'clock. I heard his sharp intake of breath. What did you tell them? I didn't tell them anything. They didn't give me a choice, Ezra. They threatened Isaac. They know his school, his classroom, everything. Oh, God. His voice broke. Naomi, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I'll turn myself in. I'll meet them alone. You and Isaac will be safe once they have me. That's not the plan. What do you mean? I went to the police. They're going to be there tonight, hidden. When these men show up, they'll arrest them. But they need you there too. They need everyone involved in one place. You went to the police? He sounded panicked. Naomi, if the police are involved, those men will know. They have connections everywhere. They'll disappear and then come back for you later. Not if we're smart about it. The detective I talked to, she knows what she's doing. But you have to trust me. Trust you. He laughed bitterly. After what I've done, why would you help me? I'm not helping you. I'm helping Isaac. I'm ending this nightmare so my son can finally be safe. Whether you end up in prison or dead, I don't really care anymore. But those men who threaten my child, they're going down. The hardness in my voice must have convinced him because he finally said, Okay, what do you need me to do? We talked through the plan. It was simple, really. I would show up at Jefferson Park at 9. Ezra would be there too, hiding in the trees like before. When the lone shark showed up, I'd signal that Ezra was coming. The police would move in and arrest everyone. Simple. Except for the 1,000 things that could go wrong. After I hung up with Ezra, I spent the day with Isaac. Ruth brought him home after breakfast and I held him tight. Mama, you're squishing me again, he giggled. Sorry, baby. I just missed you. We spent the whole day together. We went to the park, the real park with clean swings and families playing. We got ice cream even though it wasn't a special occasion. We played his favorite board games. We watched cartoons snuggled on the couch. I memorized everything. The sound of his laugh. The way his nose crinkled when he smiled. The weight of him leaning against me.
Just in case.
Mama, why are you crying? Isaac asked, looking up at me during the second movie. Happy tears, I lied. Sometimes mamas cry because they love their babies so much. That's weird. But okay. He hugged me. I love you too, Mama. At 6 o'clock, Ruth came to pick him up again. Another sleepover? Isaac asked excitedly.
Yep.
Mama has some important grown-up stuff to take care of. After they left, I got ready. Dark clothes again. Hair pulled back. I wrote another letter, more detailed this time, explaining everything. If something went wrong tonight, I wanted the full truth to come out. At 8:30, my phone rang. Detective Okonkwo. We're in position. Plainclothes officers in unmarked cars. We have the entire park surrounded, but from a distance. You won't see us, but we'll see you. Okay. Mrs. Fisher, are you sure about this? We can still call it off. Arrest him at his mother's place.
No.
We do this right. We end it tonight. All right. Be careful. And remember, if anything feels wrong, if you sense danger, you give the signal and we move in immediately. The signal was simple. I dropped my keys. I arrived at Jefferson Park at 8:50. The playground looked even more sinister in the dark. I parked in the same spot as yesterday and waited. At 8:55, I saw movement in the trees. Ezra, taking his position. At exactly 9 o'clock, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. My heart started racing. This was it. Two men got out. One was huge, probably 6'5", built like he spent his life in a gym. The other was smaller, wiry, with a face like a knife. They both moved with the confidence of people who were used to getting what they wanted. I got out of my car, my keys clutched in my hand, ready to drop them if needed. Mrs. Fisher? The smaller man's voice was surprisingly soft. Thanks for coming. Where's Ezra? He'll be here. He wanted to make sure this was legitimate first. The big man laughed. Legitimate? That's cute. Tell your husband to get out here now, or we go have a chat with little Isaac at school tomorrow. Everything in me wanted to drop those keys. But I held on. We needed evidence. We needed them to say more. How much does he owe you? I asked, stalling. $63,000, with interest. It was 60 when he disappeared, but running away cost him. Now call him out. And if he pays, you'll leave us alone?
Sure.
We're reasonable businessmen. The knife-faced man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. But he's got 24 hours to come up with the cash, or we start taking payments in other ways. His mother's apartment is nice. His son's a cute kid. Lots of ways to settle a debt. That was it. The threat. Clear and recorded by the wire I was wearing. I pulled out my phone like I was calling Ezra, but instead I dropped my keys.
Now.
Detective Okonkwo's voice rang out. Suddenly, the park erupted with light and sound. Police cars with flashing lights surrounded us. Officers with guns drawn emerged from everywhere. Police. On the ground. Hands where we can see them. The two men reacted instantly. The big one reached for a gun, but 3 officers tackled him before he could pull it. The knife-faced man ran, but he didn't get 5 feet before he was face down on the pavement with handcuffs on. I stood there frozen, watching it all unfold like a movie. Detective Okonkwo appeared at my side. You okay? I nodded, unable to speak. Good job. We got everything on recording. These guys are going away for a long time. More police were streaming into the park now. I saw them heading toward the trees where Ezra was hiding. Wait, I called out. Give me a minute with him first. Detective Okonkwo looked like she wanted to argue, but finally nodded. 2 minutes. Then we're taking him in. I walked across the playground to the trees. Ezra was standing there, hands already up, tears streaming down his face. Is it over? He asked.
Yes.
It's over. Thank you. Naomi, thank you. I don't deserve your help, But thank you for. I didn't do this for you, I said quietly. I did it for Isaac. So he could grow up safe, without looking over his shoulder, without being afraid. I know. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But maybe someday could I see him? Could I try to explain?
No.
The word was final. You made your choice 6 years ago. You chose to disappear, to let us believe you were dead. Isaac has a father. He's in heaven, watching over him, loving him. That father died a hero, working to provide for his family. Don't you dare take that away from him. But I'm alive. He deserves to know. What he deserves is peace. What he deserves is to grow up without the burden of knowing his father was a coward and a liar. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to prison for fraud, for faking your death, for whatever else they can charge you with. You're going to serve your time quietly. And you're never going to contact us again. Naomi. Never, Ezra. If you love your son even a little bit, you'll give him this. You'll let him keep his memories of a father who loved him. Don't make him carry the weight of your mistakes. Ezra's face crumpled. He sank to his knees, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give us back what we lost. Detective Okonkwo appeared with 2 uniformed officers. Time's up. They pulled Ezra to his feet and led him away. He looked back at me once, his face full of regret and pain. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no love, not even hate anymore. Just emptiness where he used to be. Later that night, after giving my statement at the police station, after signing more papers than I could count, I went to Ruth's house. Isaac ran to hug me. Mom, did you finish your grown-up stuff? Yes, baby. All done. Ready to go home. In the car on the way back, Isaac was quiet for a moment, then said, Mama, I had a weird dream last night. Yeah? What about? I dreamed that Daddy came to visit me. He told me he loved me, and that he was sorry he couldn't stay. But he said you were the strongest, bravest person he ever knew, and I should always listen to you. Tears filled my eyes, but I kept them from falling. That's a beautiful dream, sweetheart. Do you think it was real? Do you think Daddy really visited me? I thought about Ezra, sitting in a jail cell right now. About the man he used to be, the man I'd loved. About all the choices that led us to this moment. I think, I said carefully, that the people we love find ways to reach us, even when they're not here. And I think your daddy, wherever he is, wants you to know you're loved. Okay. Isaac smiled and went back to looking out the window. When we got home, I tucked him into bed and kissed his forehead. Sweet dreams, my brave boy. Mama, are you going to be okay? The question surprised me. Why do you ask that? Because you seem sad. Like something big happened. Smart kid.
Too smart sometimes.
Something big did happen. But I promise you, everything's going to be okay now. Better than okay. We're going to be free. Free from what? From the past. From things that were holding us back. Tomorrow starts a new chapter for us. And it was true. The police had arrested Deborah too for her part in the fraud. The apartment building would find new tenants for 712. The loan sharks were going to prison for extortion, threats, and illegal money lending. Ezra would face trial for fraud and filing a false death certificate. His lawyer called me the next day, asking if I'd testify on his behalf, maybe ask for leniency. I hung up without answering. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer's office. The court had ordered Ezra to pay restitution. Every penny I'd given Deborah over the years, plus interest, plus damages for emotional distress. It would take years to collect since he had nothing, but eventually the money would come. Blood money, I thought. But Isaac could use it for college. Something good from something terrible. 6 months after that night in the park, Isaac and I moved to a new apartment across town. Bigger, brighter, with actual sunlight streaming through the windows. I got a better job at a law firm, answering phones and doing administrative work. The pay was better, the hours were stable. We started building a new life. Isaac joined a soccer team. I made friends with some of the other moms. We went to museums and movies and did normal family things. Sometimes Isaac would ask about his father, usually at bedtime. Do you think Daddy would be proud of me? Absolutely. He'd be so proud of the boy you're becoming. And maybe somewhere, in some version of the past where Ezra had made different choices, that would have been true. But here, in our present, I was done looking back. Done mourning. Done carrying the weight of someone else's lies. One evening, about a year after everything happened, I was cooking dinner when Isaac came into the kitchen holding something. Mama, I found this in the back of my closet. It was the urn. The one that had held the fake ashes. My heart clenched. I'd hidden it away, meaning to throw it out, but never quite doing it. What should we do with it? Isaac asked. I looked at my son, at his serious face, at the way he held the urn carefully, like it still mattered. What do you think we should do? He thought for a moment. I think we should say goodbye.
Like, really goodbye.
And then let it go. Smart kid. So much smarter than his mama sometimes. That weekend, we went to the lake. Just the two of us. Isaac held the urn, and I held Isaac, and together we said goodbye to the man who never really existed. The perfect father. The devoted husband. The hero who died trying to provide for his family. We let those lies go, scattered them on the wind over the water. Goodbye, Daddy, Isaac whispered. I'll always love you. Goodbye, Ezra, I said silently. I'll always remember what you taught me. That I'm stronger than I knew. That I can survive anything. That I don't need anyone to save me, because I can save myself. We walked back to the car hand in hand, lighter somehow.
Free.
That night, as I tucked Isaac into bed, he said, Mama, I'm glad it's just us. You and me against the world. You and me against the world. I agreed. Always. And for the first time in 6 years, when I closed my eyes, I didn't see Ezra's face. I didn't hear his voice. I didn't feel the weight of his lies. I just felt peace. The dead could finally stay dead. And the living could finally start to live. The end. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. Thank you for following Naomi and Isaac's journey. Remember, you are stronger than you know, and you deserve a life free from lies. Take care of yourself and the ones you love.